Let's talk about God of War Sons of Sparta. This game has been very weird and good and bad. It really depends on where you fall on the spectrum of this game. It's weird for PlayStation, right? They don't typically shadow drop games, which that comes with its own can of worms on the quality, scope, and size of the game, how they're pricing it. There's so many unknowns because there is no runway of a press buildup. We had rumors, sure, which that goes into a separate conversation of people are expecting one thing and they may or may not love the end result, which is another issue of this game being a smaller, modest scope, pixel art looking game, which is refreshing, I find, for PlayStation to explore and do that and have this be a storytelling lore vehicle for a very big, well-known property, a highly successful one like God of War, which is why my ears perked up when we had this rumor a long time ago of a 2.5D side-scrolling Metroidvania God of War. Like, that sounds incredible. And I think the easy way for a lot of people to think and look of this game, or think about what this game would look like, is maybe a Lost Crown or a Metroid Dread, a 3D side-scrolling game, but it's the Kratos that we know from the PS2 era, which is still an adult Kratos. We didn't know how young this was going to be in his timeline and his story, and we're seeing a very young Kratos, somewhat unfamiliar, you might say, where it's Kratos and Deimos, and they're going through their life within Sparta, getting an Aaron's Pass, which allows them to exit outside of Sparta, and you're seeing just a very different looking God of War game. So the opinions have really been running the gamut on where people fall on this. Now, quite infamously, over the weekend, we had a lot of headlines come out from David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, on their own channel playing this game and sharing some very harsh opinions on this title because they just don't really feel that this game fits for what is an in-universe God of War experience. And I'm somewhat in agreement, but, there's a lot of nuance here. I don't even want to, start quoting Jaffe or saying this and that. It's going to spend too much time harping on his opinions, which I think are unfair to try and summarize when there's so much nuance to it. So I just find it's always important to do that instead of make an assessment based off the headlines. With that said, though, I want to air my own opinions out on this game. Now, I'm not fully done. I mean, it's been over the weekend, right? So I know some people have already finished the game. Me, I'm about 9 hours in, which isn't much for when the game came out last Thursday. But the thing is, I'm trying to really gold path it, which is something I don't typically do unless it is a Metroidvania. It's maybe the one genre where, and I don't know if I'm on my own on this, but it's the one genre where I feel it's probably better to try and gold path because by nature of the genre itself, you are always going to be backtracking constantly. And it really just works out a lot better as far as a valuing time scenario, just in the sense that I don't know how lenient the game is going to be with fast travel. The traversal itself, is it really easy and quick and snappy to get back to those areas? Do I like the traversal in the game itself, which I find is also a very important part of the moment-to-moment feel for a Metroidvania. Sometimes for me, a big part of what makes those games really fun and enjoyable is that if you get a sense of fulfillment out of the backtracking experience, that's what will make me want to do it. But I almost always don't want to do that because I also don't know where the goal path is going to take me. And they do tend to sort of steer you back to certain areas again. And that's where it's much more conducive to, oh, now I have the equipment or that jumping method or whatever the case is, that hook shot item that I need to be able to reach that area that was out of reach. You're always going to be doing that in Metroidvania. So it's like the one genre where outside of everything else where I try to do all the side stuff and go pick things up and it's a rising tide for the main story, I tend to not do that in Metroidvanias. So for 9 hours, right, of my playthrough, and I feel like I'm only goal pathing it, I'm surprised by just how many more things there are still to do on the map with hidden chests and out of reach areas and the equipment that I don't have just yet, and then the skill tree, which still has a lot to fill out. I actually was just finishing some of the trials last night. I was surprised to see how tough those actually were. Now, this might also speak to my own level of skill and experience, so it might be something where people are just knocking these things out. I'm playing on the regular setting too. Cadet, I think it was called. But I do have my own set of problems with it. Now, just for the gameplay itself, right? The one thing that's really annoying me is the transition scenes from screen to screen. You know, it's a Metroidvania. You're going to be constantly moving over to another screen. And some of these are as fast as you would think. It should be a blink, basically. It shouldn't take very long at all. Some take way too long for what is a console that we are so accustomed to loading screens being essentially gone. And more so for deaths as well. Deaths take way longer than they have any business being on this game. It's a minor thing, it might sound like a nitpick, but it's going to be that on top of all these other little things that just end up being a real big pain, and it starts getting really annoying. Combat itself too is something where it's not as snappy and kinetic as I was hoping it would be. And that might, I gotta be honest, that might be more of a skill thing for me. I'm not really taking to it the way I thought it would. It's basic spear, stabbing, square, 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 and you can kind of mix that around with your evades and parries. But I'm missing parry timing on a lot of things where I feel like I shouldn't. I'm not really connecting with the way the game expects me to evade from certain enemy attacks, which based on skills, you're going to be able to do that from a certain angle and unlock a sort of quick time, slow motion period. And I'm not really just hooking into it the way I think the game wants me to. So combat is also falling a little bit short for me as well. But here's the thing about this title, right? It's a God of War game. And with that, I think, does come an expectation, a very high expectation of what this thing is going to be and also what it's going to look like. What it looks like, I think, is certainly a lot more subjective. Some people saw the pixel art, they immediately tuned out. This, I am actually a huge fan of. I think it looks gorgeous. Admittedly, I think it will look a bit samey and probably like a lot of other pixel art style games if it weren't for the novelty of, oh, this is God of War, and maybe that's what's hooking me a lot more. It still does look like a very gorgeous game, but there's no getting around the idea of if you were expecting a 3D looking God of War game, Metroidvania, then obviously that's not even remotely close to what this is, so you might tune out right away from it. And that's totally understandable. What's refreshing for me, though, in particular, from a PlayStation Studios game, like I mentioned this on LTPS, it still holds true. You launch the game, you see that typical swooping PlayStation Studios animation. We associate that animation with AAA 9-figure single-player narrative epics that PlayStation has been so well known for since the late PS4 cycle. And you do get that animation for an MLB The Show or the Lego Horizon game, Astrobot, but to see like a pixel art like gameplay weaved into those PlayStation buttons as the animation swoops in, that alone felt so refreshing to me. And it's like, I would love for Asahi to explore more of this, even on the basis of what I've been saying so far. Sounds like I'm not really having a great time with the game. I do want to preface and sort of backtrack a bit and explain that I am enjoying it. I'm going to see it all the way through. I'm probably going to go for Platinum because the game is not going to be super, super long. It's just longer than I was expecting it would be. But like just that basis alone, it does excite me in the sense that this could be a great storytelling vehicle for other PlayStation IP, and that if Sony's going to be more open to maybe doing titles like this, funding them, finding some sort of external partner studio, and letting them, again, like explore lore in this manner and do a different genre, like this is such a pretty normalized thing. Like games do this all the time. Publishers and developers love exploring their IP in this way. PlayStation just sort of like they took a back seat with that from, again, like mid PS4 onward. And so it's really refreshing to see them do that for such a big name like God of War. I think what sucks is that there's seemingly a lot of compromises on what is such a big IP. God of War is huge. Kratos as a character is huge. And if I'm SIE and I'm going to be doing something that is very much considered smaller scope, a more disciplined budget, very experimental, that's fine. I would still want to make sure I'm getting the absolute best of the best, the cream of the crop. And even if, certain studios are in a very competitive place right now with maybe building out their own IP or something, you get somebody that's a grade A name in this genre and you secure them to do this because it's Kratos, it's God of War. I think that's what you should do, not to throw any flack at Mega Cat Studios. They've done a fine job here in the game. It really is. It's quite fun. Dare I say, inoffensive, which isn't a bad thing. It just means that, again, with the God of War IP, I was maybe expecting something a bit different. And that's not even so much the tonal aspect of it as well. This is a very young Kratos with his brother Deimos. I mean, the highlights, unsurprisingly, are when you have Kratos, T.C. Carson, the adult Kratos, narrate the story where he's telling it to Calliope, his daughter. And that's a really great thing to see too, right? That's what I love about this being a storytelling vehicle in a different genre, is that you can see a side of Kratos that we don't normally see. And that's the other weird thing about this IP, right? We got these brutal, violent hack and slash games where, as far as the plot is concerned, the guy's justified because of what happened to him. But that's what made the Norse series so exciting, is that they were somehow able to turn around a one-track character into a very deeply layered person. And now we're working in a very backwards way of, we had that middle portion where there's very few lines and a lot of yelling. That's what Kratos was from 1 through 3 and even the PSP entries. And those were sequels. Or, excuse me, prequels, I should clarify. Norse, you get a much more disciplined, nuanced, and layered Kratos. And now we're going well before that and seeing a somewhat immature Kratos. And tonally, I think there's a bit of whiplash there.
Seems the bow of Eros has made you its target.
I never even got to tell Amara about the Cyclops. Was she flirting? I think she was flirting.
Yes. Through all her tears, she was clearly on the hunt.
Ha, you're funny.
When I remember to be.
I think the weird thing to me with the tone and it's the voice acting which is throwing me off a bit. It very much comes off as a little overly cartoony, maybe kid-friendly. I would still think for what is a lore-accurate Sparta, these kids are going through a very disciplined life that even if they're 10-something years old, I would just fully expect that they maybe wouldn't speak in such a lighthearted, very playful manner. And that is also a bit of a turnoff for me. So I think the game it's a very fun, it's enjoyable. I am enjoying the game. I just think for it being associated with God of War, there's so many other avenues where I would have thought they would have taken it in a different direction. Love the pixel art, but I think the tone is off, and I'm really not clicking with combat or traversal the way I want to out of this genre in particular. Some of those things might be more on me than the game itself, but I'll see it all the way through, but that's sort of where I fall on this. It's a game that is in a weird rock and a hard place of, it's fun, enjoyable, and I absolutely want to see SIE do more of these games. The only other weird thing is when you do shadow drops, that comes with a risk element of nobody knows how long this game is, if it's going to be worth it to them. They're not going to print the game on disc, which is a more personal matter for me, but I know many others share that same sentiment. And you just have no idea what you're walking into, right? The game could have bugs as well, or issues, or trophies that don't unlock properly, right? This happens all the time, and it's a little bit concerning to dive into the complete unknown. But having said that, I do find the game a very refreshing experience. It might not have been entirely what I wanted out of the initial rumors hearing about this game, but I am still enjoying my time with it, and that has not deterred me away from wanting more of these games from SIE. But let me know how you're feeling about the game as well, and I will see you all in my next video. You take it easy.